the Debian Swirl is one of the most instantly recognizable logos in the entire Linux world, up there with things like Tux, GIMP, Arch Linux, Red Hat, and a couple of others. Let me know your favorite logos in the comment section down below. But this was not the first logo that Debian ever used, and it was also not the only logo they had to choose from when they eventually changed their logo. Their logo changed as a response to a contest held for a new logo back in 1999. We had choices like the ants, which I don't hate, but it doesn't really make any sense for Debian. We have the Debian logo that we all know today. We have the seal logo, which personally I kinda like. We also have the original Debian logo, which it's certainly a logo. I'll say that much. Also, we have Fixed Chicken and DG. Zoom out a little bit. I don't hate that. I think the colors are a little bit in your face. And DG looks like something straight out of the 90s. I don't want to be mean to any of the artists from the time. They all obviously put a lot of work into the logos they made, but things were very culturally different back then in Linux. Just look at the kinds of desktops people were running in the late 90s and early 2000s. I think from the logos that were available, this logo by far aged the best. While we all know this red as the red of the Debian logo, this isn't just any random red. The red is very, very clearly defined in the colors it should be used in various different styles, the colors that should be used for printing, and all of this is very clearly laid out if you want to make use of it, along with the font that was used for the textual part of the logo. Now, this logo, when you're just looking at the swirl and not the additional text, is a very simple and very elegant logo that I don't think anybody would ever want to change. Maybe you would make a slight modification here and there, but the Debian Swirl is always going to be the logo of Debian. But have you ever wondered not why it was made, not the meaning behind the logo, because there's been long discussions about what is the symbolism of the Debian logo, what does it mean? Sorry for the delayed response, but here is a possible answer to the second part of the question. From a semiotic perspective, although the question was what the swirl tries to symbolize, it may be of some interest what it actually might have ended up symbolizing for some people. Fasten seatbelts, please. And then it's this giant essay about things it can possibly relate to. If you didn't know, people are really good at pattern matching when there isn't really a pattern. Instead, how it was made. Now, some of you guys have been using Debian for a really long time, might already know this story, but I feel like a lot of people have no idea this happened. What if I told you the Debian Swirl was made from an Adobe Illustrator brush in Adobe Illustrator? This is something that was claimed all the way back in 2005. It's a simple generic stroke of rough charcoal, a standard brush shape that ships with Adobe Illustrator. Actually, it's one of the 5 defaults that appear in the brushes palette when you begin any new document. I don't see any problem with this, but I thought it should be mentioned. And this is what they put together. So we start with this brush here, and then slowly they make the changes, and you get to this. Now, obviously, just having this process doesn't really tell you anything. You can certainly see that a lot of the elements from this brush are in the swirl, but without recreation steps, it's just someone saying it can be done. This didn't really get much attention at the time, with a single reply. On the plus side, it may make obtaining high-resolution versions that are available on the Debian www MISC section easier, which this person apparently didn't know what an SVG is, so yeah, it would make it easier if you don't know what an SVG is, that is certainly true. This didn't really get much attention until about 2010 or so, when people noticed a PC seller in New Zealand called Legend PC. This might sound like a random segue, but follow along here. As you can see, it still seems like they are in operation today. I've not been able to find like 40 series GPUs, but they have modern hardware for the most part on here. It at least seems like they're still in operation. But the logo you see here, this is not the logo they were using at the time. Instead, this was their logo. Now, I don't know about you, right? But that looks a little similar. Just a tiny little bit. Who am I kidding? This is just the Debian logo. It's just feeling a little under the weather. It's just feeling a little blue. This got posted over onto the Debian mailing list. Inappropriate use of the Debian logo. FYI, a computer shop has taken the Debian logo and used it for his business. Nowhere does this business mention Debian. When I sent over an email informing him of the misuse and linking to the Debian logos, he claimed he created the logo from scratch. Please excuse his bad English, but it's best I quote word for word. The company logo was created by Photoshop and logo software. We designed it from the stretch, which is obviously scratch. If you have something to say, give us a call. And then links to their website and the screenshot. Whether they did or didn't make the logo from scratch, one of them seems a little bit more likely. The end result is the same. You have a logo that looks exactly the same as the Debian logo. This broke into a massive discussion on the mailing list regarding trademark violation and how trivial the logo is. Unfortunately, they may be right and in good faith. Right. But that may not matter since, unlike copyright, the derivation of an image is not, as far as I know, relevant for trademark violation. What matters is whether the image is confusingly similar to an existing trademark. This message confirms the swirl is just one of the faults and linking to that original post from 2005, which, may I say, was quite a naive choice for such an important distro. Yes, it would have been better to present an image that wasn't so trivially duplicated by independent users of that image program, but it's a burden to be borne now. What constitutes use of the logo? As far as I know, a trademark doesn't need to be registered to be enforceable. If you can prove that due to the use of a logo closely resembling ours, a customer could falsely believe that the product sold is Debian and that this use of our unregistered trademark is harmful to the customer and or business, we would have a claim. In this precise case, the logo is blue, not red. The company sells computer hardware and Microsoft Windows. The word Debian is nowhere to be found on the site, and Linux is only mentioned marginally. Therefore, I don't believe this use of our unregistered trademark does any harm. Nobody in his right mind would imagine for more than a second that this company is related to Debian. At least, I don't believe that any court in his right mind would rule in our favor. I don't know, it seems like a pretty clear connection that a company selling computers would have something to do with Debian. That seems like a pretty easy thing for a person to confuse. And someone even suggested just let them have the logo. We can have another logo competition. These days we have several artists involved with Debian, so we might get a great logo. As I mentioned before, a user discovered that post from 2005, that user being Alessandro Rubini. This is one of the posts we already saw part of before, and this over here is another one of their posts. Can it really be reasonable in any sense of the word to believe that this company would independently invent an identical logo pixel for pixel, only changing the hue? No, not reasonable, unless both copied from the same swirl, which seems reasonable linking to that original post and the associated image. I think we need someone with a copy of Photoshop, hopefully the same version, to check where the swirl is and how much the Debian one differs. And luckily, someone actually had a copy, that being Michael Cassano. The message from 2005 seems to indicate it was produced using Illustrator, not Photoshop. Attached is an image I just created using Illustrator 14. My goal was to recreate the Debian logo. I used the rough charcoal brush with the swirl tool. I didn't create the original Debian logo, but it is clear to me that the same technique was used by whoever created Debian Swirl logo, that being Raul M. Silva. And this is their fake Debian logo. It obviously has the same elements, but it's very, very clearly a different logo or an attempt to try and copy it. You have these dots here, which are the same dots as over here. You have these 3 dots here, which line up with these dots here. You have this thing on the outside, which lines up with this one. You have this line here, which is this line. You have this extension, which is this extension. It's just the settings they're using are not the same settings used for this logo. Ever since that post in 2005, people occasionally spread around that Debian was just using a default brush with default settings created in Adobe. This is an unsubstantiated claim that has been repeated had Obsidian on the list for years. Sure, it uses a default brush, but who has demonstrated that the exact swirl pattern can be reproduced trivially by accident? No one. When companies show up with a logo that reproduces your exact application of the brush, angle for angle down to the pixel, it stretches credulity to claim that this occurred to them independently. Until someone gives the exact parameters needed to obtain the same result, there is no way to conclusively say whether this is trivial to accidentally reproduce or not. So Michael Cassano came in and saved the day. Mike has prodded me enough to dig into this more. Here are the steps I found to reproduce Debian's logo. Select the spiral tool and click on your canvas. Change the number of segments from 10 to 8. Select the charcoal rough brush. Change the stroke from 1 to 0.5 point. Rotate minus 90 degrees. Given the high number of websites creating logos and the relative simplicity of this logo, you be the judge. Attached is what I created with these actions. So this is what they made. And if you ask me, that looks like they managed to replicate it perfectly. Could this logo be made by accident? Probably not. Could you say that this company saying that they made the logo from scratch actually made the logo from scratch? I really doubt it, considering how close it is and the fact that nobody really sat down to work it out for like 5 or so years. I really doubt that they made it themselves. And even if they did, they still made the Debian logo and they're still not allowed to use it. If it was the default properties of these tools, maybe you could say then creating it is a little bit too trivial, and trying to retain a trademark on that is probably going to be difficult. But considering you do need to go and actually tweak some stuff, it seems like it is different enough. I don't know. I'm not a trademark lawyer, and the stuff with Legend PC was dealt with 10 plus years ago. What I do know is if you want to go and make the Debian logo from scratch, these are the settings you go and use. Does it really matter? No. Not at all. I'm not saying that Debian is bad because their logo is created with proprietary software. That's totally okay. But it is kind of funny that a distro that was so hyper-focused on free software did have its logo made in an Adobe product. But what do you guys think? Do you think it matters? Were you involved in Debian at the time and involved in the mailing list and heard about the story? Or is this something you're just finding out about? I would love to know. So if you like the video, go like the video. And if you really like the video and you want to become one of these amazing people over here, check out the Patreon, subscribe to the Libera linked in the description down below. That's going to be it for me. And my logo is made with free software. Okay, maybe not on this channel. The one on the gaming channel was though.